You can't speak about John Wick or the Continental without speaking to the man behind the action. Check out our conversation with action director Larnell Stovall.
The Continental
Oh,
is fantastic. So
yeah.
congratulations on that. Um, the first
Thank
obvious
you.
question for you is there a difference between doing something for the small screen versus doing something for the big screen?
Ooh, okay, that's interesting because there is a difference. Most of the time, it's budget and time. That's usually the biggest difference. But for me, as an action designer, I will say if both versions have 1 day for a fight scene, I will say that's where it becomes the same. You just have to make sure you're able to execute whatever it is you're trying to express in that day. But on the bigger scene or bigger scale, you might have multiple days. So between TV and film, that's the big difference. Most TV shows, you're only going to have 1 day, maybe a half a day sometimes for a full fight scene. And this is where you have to be smart and think about how much can you get out in that time frame and yet get it done.
You say that, but with the Continental, it feels like you guys made a trilogy of movies
Mm-hmm.
for TV because it's what
It
126,
is.
119,
Yeah.
137.
Yes. Yes. This is a first for me because it did feel like we were doing three films back to back to back. But, it still had that pace of TV at times too, where you couldn't spend 4 days in one location. You might spend two.
Right.
You can't spend five days on one fight sequence. You might have one, so that's where sometimes the TV field did come in at. But, to the credit of our director and our showrunners, they made sure we had what we needed. And then from there, once I found out those time frames, that was my job and the team's job to work together and make these sequences within the time frame we knew of ahead of time. So yeah.
Talk to me about this expectation on the part of the audience with regards to John Wick, because they've kind of set, or Chad's kind of set this benchmark, right? Oh, there's always going to be the right number of
Yes.
bullets in the gun. Keanu's doing his own stunts. And
Uh-huh.
have those things become like your true north whenever you're crafting an
Yeah.
action sequence?
Yes. And I will say that comes from, I'm a part of 8711. I'm part of the team. Chad's my boss, and a mentor as well. So, with that being said, when I got the call to do this, there's an expectation, but there's also a standard too. And within that standard, you bring that into the script, you bring that into the characters, and then you start designing what works best within these characters. And then you say to yourself, okay, the audience had a chance to watch John Wick grow from 1 to 4. But by the time we come out, 4 has already came out. So people are going to expect the caliber of action you saw in part 4 in our first time out the gate. So that's
Right.
one of the pressures you have to keep in mind because you can't go, oh, no. When we get to season 3, we're going to show you this. No, it's no. You have to treat it as if you don't know what's going to happen next. So you treat each sequence as if, it has to count. And I think we just added a lot of passion and flavor to each sequence and to make it stand out.
There are so many hugely ambitious fight sequences in this, man, but
Uh,
I'm a
Thank you.
sucker for the oneer. I know some people think it's
Okay.
gimmicky, but every time I see one, I'm just like,
Yeah.
hell yes. Um,
Yeah.
Talk to me about the oneer in the stairwell because the show starts and you guys don't, pardon my French, you guys don't fuck about. You get right into it.
Yeah.
Give me a brief rundown on how you pull that stairwell oneer off.
Well, I would say this. The stairwell was exciting because we knew this was the first introduction into the action of this world. It was supposed to set the standard of here's a taste of what's to come. And also to make sure, hey, we gave you some candy. Now sit back and eat your vegetables too, because we
Right.
understand that, you gotta get the story in. So we understand that. But before you have to sit back and see the world develop, enjoy these characters. And it was definitely took a lot of pressure off our shoulders because we felt like we captured something special. But you always want the audience to be the ones to tell you that because they know what the Wick world has brought to them, and it's up to them to sign off and say, did we deliver the same justice to the world in Continental?
No, I think, and I think you pulled it off because I think going into it as well, as the audience, we make that distinction between film and
Mhm.
television. Even in our heads, we're like,
Yes,
oh, this is TV. Don't expect too much. Like you said, smaller
yes,
budgets, tighter
exactly,
time frame.
exactly.
And then 5 minutes into it, I'm like, oh, they're not messing about. This is some good action. So, yeah, I
Thank
think you
you,
guys pulled it off. That was very,
thank
very
you,
cool.
thank you. Great, yeah, great teamwork.
Yeah. And I'm curious about the pacing of the action as well,
Mhm.
because,
Mhm.
like you said, we've given you your dessert, you've got to eat your vegetables. As an action director, how much influence do you have
Mhm.
over where the action goes, oh, how the action plays out over these three episodes? Because episode two
Mhm.
is that bridge episode, and
Yes.
it sets us up for what's coming in episode
Mhm.
three. But
Yes.
if there wasn't any action in episode two, we'd be a little bored too. So, can you talk to me
Yeah.
about the sprinkling of
Mhm.
that action throughout the show?
Well, fortunately and unfortunately at times, most of the time as an action director, we don't usually control the pacing of when action scenes come up because some things can start off very talk heavy, and then here comes an action sequence 25 minutes into it, and you're
Right.
like, "Woof, I've been waiting for this." As whereas a lot of people start off with a bang from the very top of it, but then you don't care about the characters, you don't know who they are, so it better be really good to give me that and then allow me to settle. But for the Continental, they did a great job of spreading things out because I was always curious where we're going to be able to express our creativity, what sequences coming up. So when you get the scripts and you read them, you're like, okay, episode one, all right, where we seem to be kind of spread out evenly on, action, talking, a little bit of action, talking, okay, big action, bam, finish the episode. Episode two, talking, talking, and talking, and talking. But it's okay because you have to understand that if you're invested in this world and these actors who do such an amazing job, they're carrying you on a journey. So by the time the action ramps up again, it's a payoff. So I think they spread it out properly. But of course, there's the director in me that wants to say, no, this is good. I want to get this. I want her to get
Right.
this out. I want him to talk. I want him to. And then by the time we get to this action, it means more. But then you get to episode three, and I think there was some talking mixed with the action. So because it was just so much of it, but they all were payoffs and conclusion to stories and journeys. So yes,
I've got about 30 seconds left now. Very quickly,
no problem.
just
Mm-hmm.
based on what Keanu Reeves has done in Wick, and even what Tom
Mm-hmm.
Cruise does with every one of his movies, have
Mm-hmm.
you found that there is an increased pressure on actors to be doing these stunts themselves, especially when it's something that's branded as from the John Wick universe?
Yes, yes. No, there is that pressure. Our job is to train the actors to get as much of them on film as possible. As the audience, you're there to see the actors. I love my stunt people, love the stunt community. I was a former stunt guy myself, but I do understand our purpose and when it's time to step in. But if the story is designed to highlight the actors and that character, then as an action director now, my job is to give the audience as much of the actor as possible, within reason, of course. And I just think at the end of the day, you're just going to relate to that more. You're going to enjoy, it's a better payoff.
Very, very cool. Larnell, this has been an absolute pleasure. One of the unintended, I guess, consequences of the strike that's going on is that I get to speak to people like you, and I never do. So thank you so much. This is so great.
No problem. No problem. Well, thank you for your time.
The John Wick spin-off The Continental premieres on Prime Video on September 22nd. Check it out. Let us know what you think. Sound off in the comments. Thank you so much for watching.